Good afternoon. I'm Bryan Hertz, co-founder and CEO of Filmio Studios. I am not a filmmaker. I'm a lifelong movie lover and a technologist who has spent the last 30 years building tools for people willing to pursue difficult ideas. But what inspires me most isn't the technology. It's the entrepreneurial act itself, taking something that exists only in your imagination and having the courage to make it real. That is what every filmmaker does. But the hardest part of making a film isn't the idea. The hardest part is the isolation. You know this feeling. You have a concept, you sit alone in a room, staring at a blank page, trying to guess what the market wants. You spend months, sometimes years, building a package, you try to assemble a budget, you try to find comparables, and then when you finally have something you believe in, you stand alone again, trying to convince a gatekeeper to care. Think of the first time that the world, think of the first film that made the world feel larger to you. Now imagine it never found its way out of the dark. Entertainment is more than an industry. Stories carry culture. They change how we see a place, a family, a possibility, and even ourselves. Yet for generations, the question of which stories receive the chance to matter has been answered with surprisingly little evidence from the people those stories are meant to reach. The audience has always had a voice. The industry has simply waited until opening weekend to hear it. For generations, filmmakers have been forced to build in the dark. Make the film, spend the money, cut the trailer, and only then turn to the audience and hope somebody shows up. And that sequence is broken. Not because filmmakers lack imagination, and not because audiences have stopped caring. It's broken because the relationship between a story and its audience begins at the very end, when it should begin at the very start. What if filmmakers could stop guessing alone? What if evidence of audience conviction could begin forming before the first day of production? That is why we built Filmio. Every project begins with something fragile, one idea worth protecting. Filmio gives that idea a place to live and gives the people who feel something for it a way to find their way in. Before the first frame reaches a screen, relationship can begin between a filmmaker, a story, and the audience that wants to see it exist. Now, that relationship is not a theory. It's already being lived by creators who decided to let people into the journey. Here are a few words from a handful of the hundreds of amazing filmmakers, including Emmy Award winners, building their dreams on Filmio.
You're just in constant communication and constant contact. It's a real point of emphasis.
I think it really encourages, nay, forces filmmakers put themselves out there and really build their own audiences, and not only for this project, but ongoing for the next project, for their careers. And it's really exciting.
It's been so freeing to put my projects on there and promote them and talk to people, interact with people and see how the story affects them. And it's really built my confidence of my own ideas and projects.
We had, a belief system. You can show that lots of people believe in you.
So what you just heard was the experience of no longer creating entirely alone. That is what it looks like when a story finds its people. And that relationship begins with you. You set the pace. You choose which moments leave the room and enter the world. A poster can invite a point of view. A milestone can become a shared moment. Fans start voting, liking, sharing, and every act of participation gives the story a little more life until what began in one mind starts to live in many. Some people see a project, others choose to carry it with them. On Filmio, your fans become superfans. A superfan is not just someone who clicks follow. It's the person who comes back, who wants to see where the story goes, who shares a milestone because it matters to them too, who tells someone else, you should know about this, and turns the first spark of belief into momentum. Today, when people show up for a story, their support is usually reduced to a ticket sold, a view counted, or a click recorded. And then the relationship ends. But the people who believe early should not disappear after their participation is counted. Filmmakers should be able to recognize them, to bring them closer, thank them by name, invite them into the moments that matter, give them early access, even carry their names into the credits. Not because they bought their way into the story, but because they believed in it before the rest of the world did. And that relationship needs a rhythm. On Filmio, we call it the newsreel, a place of real contact with the audience. It gives a project a pulse, the moments you choose to share as the work moves forward. An image, a decision, or a milestone, a living record of a story becoming real. It gives the people who care a reason to come back. And every time they do, the relationship grows deeper. This particular creator, Xavier Rull, decided to build his horror film, MyStalker, in public, found his audience on Filmio, and then was recognized at Cannes in March to Film and landed a $2.8 million production deal. And all of that participation begins to speak. Every vote, every return, every share. Every person who brings someone else into the journey. Individually, they're all small actions. Together, they become signal. Evidence that a story is not simply being seen, but is beginning to matter. Filmio organizes that participation through what we call the Go Score, a dynamic indicator that gives you a clear picture of project readiness, audience participation, momentum, and demand-related signals into one evolving view. It does not decide what a filmmaker should create. It reveals what is forming around the project, where conviction is growing, where the connection is deepening, and where the filmmaker has more work to do. For the first time, the audience doesn't have to be the last data point in the process. For too long, we've treated the audience as a transaction. We rent them for a weekend when the trailer drops, and then we lose them. But when you build in public, when you invite people into the process from the beginning, let them respond to your ideas, and give them reasons to champion your milestones, you're not just building a project. You're building a community. The people who can support this project, follow your next one, and carry the relationship forward. And a forever audience is not something you buy. It's a community that you earn, one act of participation at a time. Now imagine this is no longer the exception. Imagine millions more filmmakers able to find the people their stories are meant for before they've spent years and everything they own trying to prove those people exist. And imagine that every act of participation does more than build a community. It creates intelligence. Intelligence that can help filmmakers understand their audiences earlier, make stronger decisions, recognize opportunities, and move through the creative journey with more support than ever before. That is not a distant vision. Soon, Filmio will unveil the most consequential thing we have ever built. A new intelligence system designed to change how stories move from imagination into the world. It begins before the film is made, transforming audience conviction into living intelligence that can help shape decisions across the entire creative journey. This is more than the next chapter for Filmio. It's the beginning of a new way to build entertainment. For most of human history, storytelling belonged to everyone. We told stories around fires. We carried them across generations. A story did not need permission, financing, or a distribution deal to deserve to exist. Then we industrialized storytelling. Somewhere along the way, we began treating our limited ability to predict financial scale as though it were a measure of cultural worth. Today, roughly 16,000 films are produced around the world each year. Here's Filmio's prediction. By 2031, 105,000 audience-backed films will reach audiences every year. That's one new film every 5 minutes. Some people will call that impossible. Others will say the world doesn't need that many movies. They're asking the wrong question. No story needs everyone. It needs its audience. And as the tools become more powerful, audience can gather earlier, and the economic path becomes more accessible. Millions more human beings will have the chance to tell the story only they can tell, and bring it to an audience already waiting for it. Hollywood was built to manage scarcity. The next era will be built to discover abundance. You can debate the number, and you can debate the timeline, but the gates are already disappearing. The question is no longer who receives permission to tell a story. The question is what happens to culture when permission is no longer required. Welcome to the end of Building in the Dark.
All right, guys. I'm Theo, co-founder of HollyShorts. We're going to ask some questions, but I got to give you my little short off script. I used to work at a studio in-house, MGM Studios, and Chris worked there. And it was the dream. It was the dream, you know, the Hollywood dream with a mega studio. Big budget, big films and everything, but you know what happens. In Hollywood, every film needs what? An audience. If not, what happens? No one shows up, no money.
Lose lots of money.
Lose lots of money. And, you know, while I was there, we had already started HollyShorts. And we were, you know, in our infancy. And the dream of working at the company ended, sadly, because that's what happens with these firms. The stock price goes down, the films don't perform, what happens? It's a wrap as the employee. And I was crushed. It was my dream to be there. And so I doubled down in my personal journey to not have that feeling again. And so as entrepreneurs, you want to build something amazing. But guess what? You don't always have the tools. And for the place, the destination to be sexy and worthy of people coming through the doors, you need resources, right? So that's why people do what? Raise money to build their platforms, right? Luckily for HollyShorts, we've had amazing friends, sweat equity, partnerships, and we've been able to create, our mission from day one was what? Create opportunities for filmmakers, give them tools to advance their careers. But personally at the same time, I was always like, I don't like asking for permission. I don't know, it's an only child thing or something. So we want to do it ourselves, but you need help, right? Yeah. So Chris approached me not too long ago about this platform, and we started talking, and their strategy, their ideas aligned with our ideas. And we have a competition together on Sunday the 23rd. We're going to give cash prizes to filmmakers beyond this year's selection, filmmakers from all over the world that are alumni, that have projects, completed projects. We've submitted them on platform. And what's the vision? To build your audience, to grow your following. And guess what? It's not myth, it's this is not like, oh, maybe this is working, and it feels like Netflix between us, right? To me, it's just as good as the leading streaming places, but it's 360 engagement. So the other thing is, it's not just me saying it. There's other filmmakers that have been involved on platform. They're having great experiences and growing audience. And so, let me give you an example. Let's just say we make a short together tomorrow, we complete it, we put it on, and then we develop our followers. I look at it a little bit like Comic-Con. So what happens at Comic-Con? You audience build by touching the people. So then you can go to studio and say, hey, this is my go score. So anyhow, that's my rant to just say I've seen it happening already in a short amount of time, and it's super dope. So here we go. Questions. Brian, you said filmmakers have been forced to build in the dark because the audience enters the process too late. Chris, from your experience, what does that late connection cost filmmakers? What becomes possible in the relationship with you earlier?
Look, can you hear me? There we go. Yes. As you said, it's interesting. What does it cost you? It can cost you millions. I can remember back in the MGM days. Oops. See, you should not have done the Budweiser. Sorry.
It was the 4 before this that caused that.
It could be, right? I specifically remember sitting there with rebranded United Artists with Tom Cruise and others, and we were deciding on how much to spend, how to release it. Do we pre-sell? Do we not pre-sell? What's the budget going to be? And we made decisions at that point that led to an 8-figure loss. We lost P&A, we lost production budget because we didn't know what the audience wanted. We sort of had a thesis that with certain casts in there, we would go big and go for it as opposed to reducing the risk, and then we lost. And I've seen it happen on the flip side. If any of you have ever seen with John Cusack, Hot Tub Time Machine. I got the pleasure of going to Vancouver on production on that one, and we released it theatrically. It didn't do great. Then, at that point, then all you have left is your marketing and distribution, the only tools you have left at that point to try to find your audience. They did a great job during the transactional window. We released a red trailer because it was raunchy, and we went after that particular audience. Guess what? Found it. And that movie, out of the 4,000 plus properties that are sitting at MGM, I think, don't quote me, I think it's top 10 ever in transactional. It's amazing, right? So, early evidence from the audience gives you optionality. That's the key. I love optionality. So that optionality means, should I pre-sell it? How much is the budget? And as you said, the audience can be smaller, more niche. As written, it's a $15 million film. Don't have the audience for that. I have an audience for a $2 million film. Do you want to make it? Yes or no, right? So it's pretty cool.
Vimeo captures participation before the film is made. How can a filmmaker tell the difference between passive attention, likes, views, clicks, and genuine audience conviction?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and the frame of reference would be what happens on, say, normal social media. People show up. It's very difficult to ascribe a value to followers, let's say, on Instagram or what have you. I mean, unless you get really, really big, right? Filmio is a place that was designed to measure engagement. So every action taken is a signal. And beyond just what the algorithm understands, you can actually see it. So you can see when people get more engaged, they post in the newsreel, which is, by the way, one of the things that creators tell us is the most exciting thing that happens to them is, somebody posts a comment about something they shared and it inspires them, right? So this level of engagement is actually very easy to see. I think the reason for that is that this is an ecosystem that was purpose-built for it, and where you can actually take that engagement and utilize it, leverage it for the actual process of making your movie, understanding who those audience members are and there's literally no reason for somebody to be there unless they're actually interested, you know? So, you know, that's the first signal. But everything else that you get to see along the way contributes and has meaning.
Right, and we just to add to that real quick, like you mentioned the Go score, you're able to, when you're conversing newsletter, when you have different perks, you're doing different programs, inside the system, you're gonna be able to see how that stuff gets measured, and you're gonna be able to see that, you know, what I like to say is you're gonna be able to let that sort of show that at some point it can turn into somebody actually buying it. And that's, at the end of the day, there has to be a transaction that has to happen. You have to either raise capital from somebody or the buyers have to go spend some money for it. And the data we have coming inside the system with some of the external feeds that we have in social gives us something pretty reliable.
Yeah, and you're so good at always distilling this down to those very things that matter, you know, like, because at the end of the day, it's the end result that matters. I mean, interesting signals along the way, but absolutely what you said.
Bryan, you said you're about to announce one of the most consequential things that Filmmakers built to date. Without giving away too much info before your launch, what will those new intelligence tools provide for filmmakers and creators?
Yeah, this is a bit of a tricky one for us because we're at the precipice of launching something big. And I've been told not to reveal too much, but you guys will all see it. I'm sure we will maintain a relationship going forward. And it'll be happening over the next, you know, month or two. But, you know, I mentioned a little bit of it in the talk, in the presentation. And what we've recognized is that intelligence around everything that filmmakers need is either unavailable or expensive. I mean, if you're inside of a big studio, you have massive budgets and you have people and you have, you know, algorithms and tools and you license things and you just have stuff, right? But if you're an indie filmmaker, those things just aren't really available. And so one of the things that we stand behind greatly is that with all the technology that's coming out, all the AI stuff that's out there now, you know, we think that the advancement in all of these tools are actually an amazing assistant to humans, but not something that should take over. And so what we've done is we've built an intelligence infrastructure that, without sharing too much, pulls together everything ever known to humans about movies and makes it instantly accessible, along with the tools that make filmmaking something that can be done like the big studios do without needing a big studio, available for everybody.
I really like that because see, everything I told you before,
Right.
do it yourself, and then you got friends that help you compete with the big boys and girls. I would say I have a marketing mind that was instilled in myself. The problem many times with marketing is you can get the megaphone and amplify, and you don't know if they're showing up until the day of.
Yep.
With this, you're seeing them respond. That's very good.
So it makes me think of a story. So 3 years ago at Berlin, we'd had Emma Thompson and Dead of Winter, $15 million movie, and we're pre-selling it. And you know, we probably had 50% sell through, right on target, and UK biggest market. And everybody went through all the meetings and no offers. Oh boy, we're rocking out now. We're right on cue.
This feels like the after party coming to us.
Classic.
Get ready.
You don't start dancing. Just don't start dancing.
Nobody wants to see that,
Okay.
really.
So no offers. Imagine. I mean, we're literally Emma. No offers sounds like I started getting livid. Like, what the hell? I want to go sit with them. Like, how is this? We get no offers. This is crazy. And I sat with them, more calm. Tell me why. And I said, she has 2 Oscars. Well, I don't understand the problem. Well, it's the first time it's thriller and action movie for Emma.
We were just talking about this.
Were you? And they're like, I don't know if I can find the audience.
Unbelievable.
And it's like, it's unbelievable. Like, so to me, like one of the things I said in the beginning with this place is at the right time in the roadmap, imagine you walk into Berlin and you're like, there's the audience in UK.
Yeah.
Right here's your stack. Like,
It definitely helps,
right,
right? Especially
Right.
those pre-sales and the money.
exactly.
Yeah.
What exists now, I don't know. This is real.
Well, I mean, I've heard of enormous amounts of money being spent on research and reports and things like that that could potentially lead to that. But they're just simply inaccessible to most people, you know, and it's questionable as to whether those have actually worked too.
Get creative too. Sorry to make it my panel, but I just so let's just say we have a feature, we do a short version of it as proof of concept, we drop on Filmio, we start building an audience because we're active, we're using the CRM tools, it's getting out there. You start seeing you have, I don't know, 600, 700, 800 really good niche fans. Well, we could reverse engineer it like our friends at Hair Love, who created a whole business with Dove. You can say to a brand, look at these active people, give me money. And brand sees it, they're like, oh, this is real data. So you can be
Right.
creative with it, you know.
Yes. Absolutely.
So, you predict 105,000 audience-backed films every year by 2031. Beyond the number itself, what change in technology, access, and audience participation are you really predicting?
I mean, it's a big question, but one of the things that I believe, and I think, you know, this is shared among a lot of our team members, maybe everybody, is that there's a civilizational bug. The bug is that, like I said before, storytelling belongs to everybody. And we tend as a society to have industrialized movie making and value the ones that supposedly will have the best financial outcome. And the infrastructure that exists today is almost nil for supporting the real stories that somebody has a passion to tell, unless they can prove that, which, as we've been discussing here already, is incredibly hard to do. So with things like what we're building, some of which we have yet to deliver, but supporting the underlying thesis that if you want to tell a story, I want you to tell your story, and I want you to find your audience. And if Chris brought this point up earlier, if it's not going to make $100 million, that doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve to exist, right? It might mean that you can't spend 80 million, or, you know, maybe when they spend 120 to get the 100 back, but it may govern the budget, may govern some other choices and decisions along the way. But there's a roadmap to make this movie, and there is an audience that wants to see it, right? And understanding what that is ahead of time, you know, allows it to exist and also saves you from making a massive mistake or series of mistakes that could potentially, you know, cause you to overspend or misshoot, you know, where you bring this movie and what you do with it. So the democratization of storytelling is something that is opening up. And I think that this is happening at a societal level anyway. Like, we've been doing this for a while, right? We've had different iterations. But when you start to see some of the, you know, I hesitate to call them YouTube-born films, but your, you know, Obsessions and Backrooms and, you know, even Iron Lungs and things like that, although some of them had a big audience to begin with, you start to understand, you know, a little bit how that can translate to what if you did have a place to build that audience, right? And I believe that that is going to happen incredibly frequently because there are some incredible storytellers, and like the submissions for this festival, I mean, some of those stories, you know, they bring tears to your eyes, you know. They're super moving, you know, and it would be an absolute crime if those didn't get out to the widest possible audience of people that want to see them.
I agree with you so much. I'm very passionate about this. I've seen different sides of it, from the in-house, the company, to making them, which is great. I recommend any festival creator to make films because you understand the people that you're filmmakers. Then I've seen creator economy and rise of creator economy. I will tell you guys with honesty that we are auteurs by heart, filmmakers, and we love the cinematic process. The problem that we have many times is thinking of it as a business, because we focus on the creative part, and then we rely on the companies to be our parents, and then we say, here, please make it. Where creator economy also has a different lens, where they experiment and they live stream on Twitch or Kick, and they grow audience and they get paid. What I encourage is to, of course, not lose your auteur sense, but also look a little bit what creators are doing to earn money so you can have your independence and do, you know, anyhow, it's a lot, but it's real. You know, going to some of these conferences, you start seeing the power that filmmakers have, and now we're seeing it with some of these. Hollywood is really looking at the ones that have been scrapping, and so
Yeah, absolutely.
sky's the limit, right? I think your final line was "Welcome to the end of building in the dark." Make that tangible for us, Bryan. What does a first-time filmmaker do differently on day one, and what new role does the audience get to play?
I mean, I don't want to steal all the air. Chris, do you want to jump in at all on that one? Or, I mean, I'm happy to keep talking. I can talk a lot. but-
You're good at that. No, fine with that's. You can go. Keep going.
All right. I mean, a lot of it is going to be probably a recap of what I said up there already. But, you know, having been building this for years, I've spoken with, you know, filmmakers, creators at every end of the spectrum, from the most famous to people that, you know, no one's ever heard of. And more often than not, people are afraid to put their project out there. You know, they don't want it to be stolen. They don't want, you know, 11 versions of this coming up. They're afraid of what people might think of it. You know, it's too early. You know, for whatever reason, they're just not ready to share it. You know, there's also work involved. You know, and it's a new discipline. You know, and there's no proof. There is now. There's some proof. But that's why I say we're kind of getting to this time. We're in it, and it's accelerating. But I think what it is embracing the idea of building in the open not only protects your IP, and we actually have tools within Filmio that literally take a snapshot, encrypt it, and lock it away and give you proof that it was yours, complete provenance, right, for the idea. But I think that one of the most powerful premises is that what if you actually could command an audience, right? I mean, command might not be the best word, but like earn. What if you could earn an audience and you had enough people there cheering for you to make this movie? It would be a little awkward for someone to just grab that thing and try to copy it, right? Like, you know, you're already there. It's obvious. So I guess part of it is that I think what we're making an effort to do is to listen to people who have, you know, real concerns and build things that overcome those, because the thesis is that building in the open endears people to you and your story. You know, like I was listening last night to someone tell me an incredible story that I know has an audience. You know, there's a real cause behind this story. And I don't know how many festivals it's been to or how many times the story's been told, you know, inside of closed rooms, but like telling it to the world from the beginning is the thing that actually gives it a life and allows for traction to start forming behind it and shows everybody that somebody cares. And it happens to be the numbers that people, you know, that have lived in your guys' professions, you know, in the professional movie making world want to see and know and understand, you know? So, I mean, that's, you know, building in the dark is lonely, you know? And it is for creators of movies or software or companies or whatever, you know? Building with the public, with people, with your fans and your audience, you know, it's incredibly empowering. You know, some of the best stories or experiences I've had have been seeing people react to their people's reactions.
So it makes me think too, like I think two things are going to become true, right? So you have to really spend time to understand who that audience is. Who is it for? Where are these people? I remember back in the MGM days, like not until I did the P&A budgets did we take demographics and start breaking them down into psychographics, subcategories. So it's not horror, it's like you're going 4 levels deep and where are they? That starts today when you create. You can't create in that vacuum and dark. Like you need to start doing stuff like that. And then I think what you also need to start doing is you got to test those ideas that are getting the audience to participate. Because at the end of the day, as you said, it's just likes. Everybody's changing. All the brands are changing from likes. It's not like, is it culturally relevant now? I mean, that's what they're asking. Nobody cares about likes and views anymore. The world's changing. So how do you create these connections? How do you get them to participate? Honestly, I think what I'd love to see is I want to make audience demand financeable. And if we can do that, on top of all the secret projects, product that's coming out, like there's some cool stuff that'll come out of Filmio.
I love it. We should take some audience questions maybe now.
Sure.
We have one in the back.
Yes, hi. I like very much what you're saying, and as a matter of fact, it's very coincidental because last night I was having a conversation with someone from the community, and we were speaking about the audience. There's 8 billion plus people in the world. I imagine 5 billion want content, want some music, art, TV, talk show, in nature, everything, content, media. And the demand is off the charts to try to make calculations of that. And what you're saying, it seems like it's on that level of connectivity with, well, let me stop at that point. But what I am trying to say is, and it's a question, what do you think could be the solution to provide content for the world in a scientific way, which can also be monetized, tokenized maybe, decentralized or centralized, and then have unlimited funding for creators like us and distributors and programmers? What do you think? Because I am seeing a wide spectrum view right now, and I want to hold on to it and be part of it. You know.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very broad, big question that I'll try to get to. If I don't, then please let me know if I missed, because you said a lot of great stuff there, which I happen to agree with. Question being, how do you get to the 5 billion people, right? So one of the things that I've noticed, and this is not a derogatory remark, it's just what I've noticed, is that some of the best storytellers, people with the most amazing... If I don't, then please let me know if I missed, because you said a lot of great stuff there.
which I happen to agree with. Question being, how do you get to the 5 billion people, right?
That part.
So one of the things that I've noticed, and this is not a derogatory remark, it's just what I've noticed, is that some of the best storytellers, people with the most amazing stories, are actually just the worst at getting the word out there. Like publicizing themselves, building their socials and that kind of stuff. While, I'm seeing ads. I don't know, maybe I needed to get my sink repaired, but I'm getting a plumber who has, 11 million subscribers to his channel. And I'm like, what? It's unbelievable, So I think one of the things, that we can do, what we are doing, is part of the intelligence that we'll be delivering is giving people the tools that they need to effectively compete or be on the same level as some of the ones that really know how to do all of this stuff really well. And they went to training and they paid for courses and they spent years doing it and they made that kind of content and they were able to target audiences, but to do it in a way where you don't have to spend years learning it. So this is one of the things, just giving people the ability with technology and what they already know how to do really well to amplify their voice, tell their story, within this ecosystem and build that audience. And that's the seed, And the seed, when you have a seed, the seed can grow, and that's what we need, is we need that seed, we need the word out there. And I think, what seems to be missing is, the tools to give people the advantage instead of them being disadvantaged by everyone else's knowledge of those tools. You got a question here?
Thank you. I'm almost finished producing a film. How, and I haven't started. I am that filmmaker that I want to be behind the scenes, not in front of the camera. So I'm now going to start, building the audience, and probably should have done that months ago.
Yes.
But how would Filmio help me? What's the process? How can you walk me through hypothetical situation or process?
So Filmio's free to join. We don't even charge for anything yet. There will be things coming in the future that we do charge for, but one of the things we never want to do is, gatekeep people's passion and their stories behind a paywall. So you have the ability to sign up, to put your project on the platform, to share what you're willing to share, whichever assets you have. And it could be a log line and a movie poster, it could be a teaser reel, a pitch video, which we encourage people to do is tell people why you're passionate about this story. And we have a community, and the community is growing. So there's a kind of social graph internally, and most likely by sharing some of what you're working on, you'll start to form an audience. And this is the story I told with Xavier Rull. He ended up with 17,000 fans on Filmio, which, it can grow a lot larger, but I think one of the interesting things about this is it doesn't have to be absolutely massive. And it was great validation. One of the things it did, and I think, the outside perspective, when you get to that point, the validation, sort of empirical evidence of people wanting, to see this thing get made is one thing. But one of the most amazing things is actually how I've seen it encourage people to keep moving. And it's sort of a self-reinforcing loop because, if you're not good at, and you haven't done things in social media and put the stuff out there, getting a really nice comment from somebody cheering you on about something that you shared is actually amazing, and that, so I think it is, first of all, it's not super difficult, and it doesn't cost anything, and it's kind of training wheels for getting yourself out there and sharing broader, in more broad ways with the world, but that would be the starting point. and we're happy to help. Let's give her Ian's phone number.
Question for me. Has anyone ever run an international campaign on platform? And if so, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, the one that I just mentioned, MyStalker is a horror movie. It's a Spanish horror film. So we have people all over the world, many different countries. There's really no geographic boundary to it. I would say we have a pretty high concentration in, Hollywood, but there are definitely people in a lot of different film markets.
Yeah, by the way, they just emailed me yesterday that Amazon Spain wants to buy that, or makes an offer on that particular property too. Internationally, I think it's it comes down to the demographics of where everybody is at. I think for now it's a little bit harder to focus on the international stuff, but I think for sure the English-speaking territories are going to be the big next wave there too.
Yeah, and I think, Chris has a very unique perspective because of his time within studios. So I'd say there's probably two parts to it. It's like, different film markets work differently. So to be able to solve all of the problems, you need to do a lot of work. We need to do a lot of work, nuanced work that make it work for those markets. But I'd say like the least common denominator of this entire thing is just audience, So, and that's available right now.
Absolutely. Question.
All right, so I make content in my film is targeting kids, perfectly 4 through 10. I don't know if they're on the platform, but that's why I'm asking. with young people being the consumer I'm after, is this still a home for the type of projects I'm trying to make?
Yeah, I'd say there's a little bit of a debate about that in terms of who's on there right now. I don't think there are a lot of young kids on there. Excuse me. But their parents probably are, and so to that extent, I would say yes. Probably not going to be marketing to the kids because, the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world are already getting in trouble for that. But the parents are there and they tend to make a lot of the decisions when it comes to that.
Yeah, so like I've co-founded and launched kids companies before, and when you're putting together that advertising budget, right, it's to the parents, especially for those demos. I've got a property that I'm repping for a creator out of Australia that we just closed a deal with Toonstar. I haven't announced it yet, but that's for sure one of the projects I'm going to bring to Filmio. To that point is that same. We're looking for a certain demographic of the parents, and we'll look to Filmio to help find it, right? So that's definitely a way to use the platform.
Yeah, and one more note on that. I think depending on what the content is, it might be something that parents are really passionate about getting that message to their kids, right? Because right now they leave them out in the wild, of like consuming all the random stuff. So, when I've spoken with parents about it, they're definitely interested in better quality content for their kids.
Okay. Run a test.
Absolutely.
So let's just say Alexa and I create a Odyssey spoof, right? And we call it something else. We drop it on the platform, and now we've got the highest ghost score. Then we take that idea, we have someone, a friend of ours that works at Lionsgate. We say, hey, they got something about comedy stuff, but look at this ghost score. Lionsgate says, I'm in. And they help finance it. I guess my question is, what happens after? Do you collaborate with the studio on that side, and then are we able to do marketing to our people on platform? Could we do trailer drops together since you helped us build audience?
It's almost like that question was not planted, by the way, but that's pretty good. We have something we're working on. I was so kick me if you want to say anything. we are testing out. We are testing out with a smaller theatrical distributor who is going out at minimum 800 screens, if not more. And we're going to do a 3-month campaign for them. So all things for this particular movie, in theory, will use Filmio as the community hub. We'll drop things. We'll drop hints and different QR codes and gamify it a little bit too. So like the thing that appealed to me when I joined is it's an ecosystem. It's a complex ecosystem, and when we try to simplify it to the users out there, I think the beauty of the complexity is it can do a lot. It can help you finance things. It can help you go from idea all the way through distribution and have the marketing and help out as well.
Love it.
Yeah, and something to add to that is there are really two different things here that are conjoined at the hip. The platform itself, which is a place for community and audience building and self-service empowerment for storytelling. And we formed a studio. And the studio, the intent of the studio is we're seeing incredible projects come through the platform, and we want to produce or co-produce the ones that have gone through the system and developed the audience and got a high Go score. And so to that extent, we will be getting more involved going forward in some of those projects. And we've also formed a film fund, so our belief in what's there and the story that's told by going through the system and getting the Go score higher is incredibly strong. And we expect that to be recognized over the course of time more and more by the industry. But in a roundabout way, yes, there are things like Chris mentioned. When we build capabilities, we put them in the platform and we want people to use them. And it didn't matter how much it cost to make them or what project we made them for. All those things become part of the apparatus, if you will. And then yes, we want to get involved more in production.
I love it so much because our dream friends that release these projects sometimes don't get it all right. So you need some extra, you need some muscle.
Yeah, big filmmakers, and they complain because what's agreed on is not working for series.
Hey guys, my name is Sitsa. I'm an actor filmmaker. Thank you so much for sharing the information. My question is, like you just said, that once the idea gets a huge score, and let's say in the future when you decide to have a film fund and decide to produce or get involved in the project, is there a choice that we have to make, or it's like the idea is owned by you guys since we don't have to pay for this platform right now?
We take zero rights when you put your project on the platform. Anything that would happen subsequently is just a conversation. So you don't give up anything by, you're not signing away, your rights or automatically inheriting us as a partner.
Thanks. Thank you.
How you doing? So I'm I'm a filmmaker as well from Miami, and we have a project that we're going to do some four-walling, some event releases, a horror film. So my question is I'm trying to figure out how granular does this get? Like say, we upload a clip of the film, like I'm sure we could do something like that, right? Script. And like we gotta decide, all right, we're gonna release this film in Miami versus Orlando versus, I don't know, Palm Beach. Like how granular does this get, and how do we measure audience engagement and where the film be successful in those cities? Like how specific, how granular?
You can have that.
I would say right now, you will see some pretty general data on those demographics. Like it's not going to be You're not going to see the city somebody lives in per se. But the good news is, and we've got our chief product officer, one of the co-founders here in the room with us, Corey. There's been a pretty big project underway for a while that feels very near term, that starts to get more granular demographic data or ability to kind of segment the audience and understand that data at a data level. Right now they're like passionate souls, that really want you to win, that are willing to contribute their voice and some data. But it's a really good question. It's actually one of the things that we think needs to be much more granular and within sort of data privacy rules and norms and things like that. So yeah, I mean, great thought.
Yeah, the answer to that is yes, and coming soon.
Yeah.
Hello, my name's Ramel, and I am actually part of one of the filmmakers who's doing the HollyShorts voting right now. And Corey, we've been emailing on Discord. So my question is, like, what were the markers based on your success stories that the studios looked for when acquiring films on your platform? Was it like the Go score, or the studios have an understanding of what the Go score mean, or like the reviews, or like the Newsreel and posts and all that?
I mean, I'll give you a couple of anecdotes, that I know of. Chris might have more specifics, but we have a friend at HBO who called us up one day and told us that the presentation of a film on the Filmio platform, the link was shared with him, and he actually said this was a shortcut that got past the massive pile of scripts and packages that they had been looking at because of the way it was presented, And so I think it can be something as simple as that. We have other, partners that, they just want more data. And I think the data part is a dream, and it's something that we probably have more than any other public platform has. But it's going to be an ongoing project to continue assembling that data in ways that the industry at large appreciates enough to qualify and fund a deal. But what's been super interesting is that the absence of that hasn't seemed to matter that much. Like the Spanish horror film, that got $2.8 million in financing. They saw the Go score, they saw the comments, they saw the audience, and they also saw a passionate filmmaker and amazing content. So, like, we're not taking credit for that, but in some small way, having participated in what he was able to achieve, maybe by, putting everything together in one place and being able to present it in the way that it's presented, I think, certainly helps.
Yeah, I would just add that, the more data we have, we'll be designing reports that you can get that'll have that level of granularity to it, that'll show it has conviction, right? So, but part of that is also meaning that there's a robust plan by the filmmaker too, right? So the filmmaker has to spend the time and energy to have that robust plan. When they do that, then the underlying data in the system, the way it's set up, can start to generate these reports that'll show, Amazon, the buyers, here's why you should buy that. So in a perfect world for me, as we get down, you'll walk into Amazon, by way of example, with maybe 20 properties on the platform with a pack this high of different data sets for them on Go score, on conviction velocity, how many times people came in and out, what they did, but summarized in a way that is a very user-friendly report. And I think that's part of the vision here.
Yeah, I almost kicked you, but you didn't go too far.
Hi, my name's Paige. I'm a filmmaker here as well. I filmed them last night.
Congrats.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a great fest. Okay, here's my question. So I'm imagining that, because we all have so many projects going, right? When we have projects that we've done and projects that we're out with. So I'm wondering what the platform looks like for a filmmaker. Do you build this audience from your past projects as well that are completed, and then you have your ones that are into the development phase? Can you have several? Do you build your audiences the more projects you put up? I don't know, I have to explore it. I'm leaning in, let's say that. But
Yeah,
I'm
actually,
curious about that.
you should be a spokesperson for us for sure.
Mm.
I mean, it was really well said. You do that, and it's, as a filmmaker, we think that you should have a forever audience, right? If you have something that you've already built, I mean, I don't know where those people are anymore or how you reach them. And that's part of the problem we're trying to solve is that, if it starts on Filmio, you'll always be able to reach them. And you probably have a way to reach some of them. So they should definitely come along. I mean, there are a lot of movies that I love that if the creator invited me in at the beginning and asked me what I thought, I'd be like, whoa, that's awesome. Like, why do they care, But, it's a cool thing, right? I want to participate from the beginning. I mean, and one of the things that we do, this is a little, I'm going a little further than what you asked, but like, you can give people perks that don't cost anything that are valuable to a person who likes what you're creating. Like, I don't know if everyone wants to do this, but you can give them their name in the end credits of the movie. And how passionate is a fan going to be about your movie actually being released at some point, knowing that their name is in it, And so, part of it is building that fandom to super fandom. Of course, if you've got fans on social media, I think it's an amazing thing to bring them in, and that way you have the ability to really communicate and share with them and get the interactivity going. And then I think the other part of your question was, what happens when you have multiple projects? You can have multiple projects underneath your umbrella as a creator. And they will cross-pollinate and they will see that you have more than one and they can support all of them.
So the idea is to build our audience from fans and then distributors, potentially, Amazons of the world who can see your work. Is that kind of the way of imagining?
Build an audience, a fan base, achieve some level of validation, right? Like Chris calls it intent to purchase. We're able to measure demand potential, and that's what people are ultimately interested in the studios.
So think about, I mean, you and I have talked before in the past about trying to raise money for it. So let's pick a number you want, 500,000 for something, right? So imagine if by building that audience with the tools that we have and are building inside the platform, you have the ability to go help raise some of that capital, right? So there's, I'm not saying that fans should be paying for it, but some fans want to. That could be an option along the way. There's transactional ways to build that way. There's showing that you have intent to purchase, and that's what I was saying earlier. My point is, literally one of the things I would love to do is I want to walk to Wall Street one day and sit down with bankers and show the data. And that data, so using your example of 500, imagine we show, help me with the math here, but whatever, I have 100,000 fans in there, but 10,000 of them are willing to spend $5, $50, maybe, to get to the 500, then imagine that, because the data nowadays with the different stuff with AI and the models you have, the predictability is getting better and better and better. And when we can see the movements of what people are doing, the conviction inside the platform that add to the probability of that forecast, that's where you're going to get to. And then all of a sudden, you don't need to go run around spending 2 years trying to find the 500.
And there's a little bit of an ancillary point to that, which is it's tempting, and people often do, go to crowdfunding sites, right? And then you're already sharing it with the public. But the first thing you're asking them to do is give you money. There isn't a lot of depth in that relationship yet. So, I mean, breaking it down to nerdy stuff that I focus on, the the customer acquisition cost to find an investor, especially people that you've never met before, is actually really high. It's hard to raise money from crowdfunding, but you can build an audience for free, and you can grow that audience and build a relationship with them. And when they see you doing the things that you say you're going to do, and they're excited about it, and you're sharing information, and you're inviting them in, and you're getting perks, and they're doing all these different things that didn't cost anybody any money, they're much more likely to support you financially, through mechanisms like what Chris said, or if you wanted to launch a crowdfunding campaign at that point, you certainly could, and you might just not need to, because you now have an audience that cares.
Last question. Hello, my name is Michelangelo. So I'm a filmmaker here. I have a couple projects in pre-production, and I will 1,000% be putting them on this platform.
All right.
And so as far as talking about financing, you were mentioning about potentially in the future being a production-capable platform.
Yeah.
So my question is, let's say the Curry Barkers of the world get on, right? They already have a following, but then they get on. Is there a way to be on your radar without being consumed by someone who already has an audience that grows, right?
Well, I don't know if this directly answers your question, but we look at the platform as an and, not an or, if that makes sense. There isn't really a downside, unless you're afraid to share the information. And that's up to every individual, some people just don't want to, But if you're there at the same time as one of them are there, then you're actually drafting off of their social graph, because the cross-pollination is there, right? It's like, Netflix recommendation engine or whatever, they're gonna, people who are interested in your genre, your story, are going to be exposed to your movie, so in that audience, they don't tend to leave per se, right? It's like somebody puts a project on there, we actually want the project to stay there forever. Because if you're a forever audience, you don't want it to leave even after it's released. There are actually monetization opportunities still, once a film is released. If you do plan on developing something else, the audience is there. There's a very interactive way of people participating in a project that's already out there. So I don't think that our idea isn't for there to be mass attrition, of users afterwards. They should stay and they should cross-pollinate.
Cool. Great. Thank you.